Good morning, good morning. Hey, Ted, hold on. I think we are having some technical difficulties with the Rumble feed.
Okay. All right.
I just got a notification here. I don't know why, but
I
don't know.
could.
Do we see us on Rumble?
Let me see if I see us on Rumble. I saw us on YouTube. Yeah, I see. Hold on, I'm going to refresh our Rumble feed.
Hold on. Let's ask the Rumblers if they can see us here.
I'm gonna test them. I am not seeing us on the Rumble feed. I'm seeing the green rhombus
green.
of death.
This is weird. Something happened just as we went on air with Rumble. It shows YouTube is live. Twitter is live.
Okay, good. All right. I always forget about the X. Okay,
yeah, I don't know what's going on here.
People cannot see us, I think.
I think so.
I cannot see us.
We've got some technical difficulties. Let me try to fix that. Mm-hmm. So I'll just introduce, and Ted, if you want to start doing,
how about if I introduce and okay, I can just.
Oh, you do all of that.
I'll do all of that while you troubleshoot. Is that all right?
Yep, let's do that. I'm gonna hit the JAWS real quick, and we can.
Okay, all right.
We can get to it.
I am editorial cartoonist Ted Rall. That over there is political analyst Manila Chen. You are listening to, watching, and otherwise consuming the Ted Manila Information Show. What am I doing? That's like my Long Island accent is kicking in. TMI for short, where we bring you way too much information. We pretty much talk about anything, everything goes, because we think you can really never have too much information. And today is definitely going to be an example of that. Today we are talking about a new story that shows that people are partying a lot less than usual, than in the past, I should say. And that includes, and what I mean by partying is not just partying like, snorting blow, but just going to parties, like any kind of parties. So we're going to be talking about the sociological and psychological implications, and there's some political implications to that as well. America, if you remember that old line from from Monty Python, "You're no fun anymore." If you're looking for that straight-laced, button-down news program, this show is not for you, but we'll have you anyway. You might want to keep the volume down, though, because sometimes this is an R-rated show. It's stuff you need to know about, and some stuff you never knew you needed to know about, including the fact that the party culture is collapsing. And hopefully we'll have a few laughs along the way. Joining us later in the hour, at the bottom of the hour, will be editorial cartoonist Scott Stantis. He'll be talking. He's been known to have a few party stories in his past. He doesn't know that I'm going to drop this on him unless he's listening right now, in which case he's been forewarned, which is always why, if you're a guest here on the TMI show, you should always tune in from the very beginning of the show. We're live every Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. Eastern Time, 9 a.m. Central Time, 7 a.m. on the West Coast. Be sure to like and follow the show. We won't leave out the mountaineers in Montana and places like that. The Ted Manila Information Show starts right now. I don't know if we can do the JAWS. Okay, I'm going to assume that Manila is troubleshooting the Rumble feed at this point. Right before we went on, if you're just joining us, the Rumble feed dropped out. If you're watching us on YouTube and X, thank you so much. And here we go with the headlines. A new wind-driven fire rapidly grew to over 9,000 acres in a matter of hours yesterday, burning north of Santa Clarita, California. That's just north of Los Angeles. Gusty Santa Ana winds fanned the flames of a new rapidly growing wildfire near Santa Clarita on Wednesday, as smoke once again filled the sky over Southern California. This is now called the Hughes Fire, not to be confused with the Palisades Fire, which has caused so much damage. That fire was reported at 10:53 a.m. Pacific local time, and in just 2 hours, it had already erupted instantaneously. It exploded, in the words of CAL FIRE, to over 5,000 acres. As of 10:24 p.m. Pacific time last night, the Hughes Fire had burned nearly 10,200 acres and was just 14% contained. The fire is burning north of the city of Santa Clarita, with massive smoke plumes visible across the city of Angels. Over 50,000 people are currently under evacuation orders, and nearby roads have been shut down. So I'm not really sure exactly how you're supposed to evacuate if nearby roads have been shut down, including parts of Interstate 5. If you're familiar with that area, it's called that part of I-5 is called the Grapevine, and it's sort of this windy, twisty part of I-5 that goes up and over the hills between LA and then heads north, depending on your orientation, up to the San Fernando Valley. Evacuation center has been set up in Santa Clarita at Valencia High School. One personal note from me personally is, do not wait for the evacuation order. By the time the evacuation order happens, the roads are clogged and it's going to be very hard to get out. It's better if you're adjacent to an evacuation area to just, go stay with a friend, get a motel, just drive somewhere else. You'll, grab, your pets and just, have a more orderly, more sane evacuation during this very dangerous time. Those fires move incredibly fast. In total, more than 1,100 firefighters were strategically pre-positioned across the region to address the ongoing critical fire danger under red flag warnings, that according to an official statement from CAL FIRE. A shift in the weather pattern will cause humidity to rise and rain to return to SoCal over the weekend. That's good news. Hopefully that'll help firefighters battle those blazes burning across the region. But in the meantime, they still got to get through the rest of a very arid week. Any luck there, Manila, on the Rumble feed?
Yes, we are back live. Had to start a brand new Rumble feed, but it's good now. I think it looks working on my end, and I think everybody will let us know if it's not somewhere. The coffee crew, as I call them, they're in there. Yeah, we fixed it. Good. Everyone can see us. So we are good. We are live. We're looking at burnt Southern California and those fun impending mudslides. That's gonna be good.
Yeah.
There's a little rain.
What could go wrong?
It's like, oh, okay, we need some rain to put out the fires. And then people are like praying for rain, doing the rain dance or whatever. And then it comes and then they're like, oh, wait, the fires are out. But now the mud is sliding down the hill and sweeping my house off the side of the mountain. So
it's not
this
good.
Is every year. Every year. I just got to tell you, this is par for the course in SoCal. Like, stop, I don't know, like either stop building houses on the dry brush hillsides, or I don't know what the answer is, but it's a little too late now, a day late and a buck short, because just every square inch that's available to build in SoCal built. just built. Okay, where are you supposed to go at this point? So that'll be fun this weekend.
Yeah, good times for sure. So I think now I have to do because we have a new feed, I have to put up the metadata so people know what the show is. I think I should go in there and fix that while you read headline number 2.
Actually, no, that's what producer Robbie can do.
Is producer Robbie here?
Producer Robbie is in the background, yes.
Okay, all right. In the background, Robbie, please do that. And then please erase the old Rumble feed so there's no confusion. Okay.
Yeah, I think so. I think the Rumblers are very smart. They know the old feed is dead, and it says live, and it says live.
Many of them are American, so I mean,
That's not fair. No, the Rumbler are. I'm gonna say the Rumblers that we have are primarily the people that were familiar with us from Sputnik or RT, anyways. So they are a more critical thinking. Yeah, critical thinking crowd, so they can figure it out.
Although, for those of you who are coming to us new, we love you so much.
We're not throwing. I'm not throwing
in an almost sexual Neil Gaiman kind of way. And,
no. I'm a married woman.
Well, maybe not. Maybe we don't. We view you purely platonically.
Totally platonic. 100%, but yes, producer
Robbie. Appropriately in all respects.
Thumbs up if you can do that for us. If you can change the metadata on the feed.
Okay, all right. So I'll proceed to headline dos. About 1,500 active duty soldiers will be sent to the U.S.-Mexico border. I don't know, by the way, is Trump going to rename the Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America? Can we, by the way, which Fox has started using officially,
yes.
Gulf of America. Can we rename Mexico to America? So it'll be the U.S.-America border? Or, I don't know. Anyway.
I don't know what that would be.
I don't know. We can name it anything we want. We can name it Burger King, U.S. Burger King border, whatever. In the coming days, to assist with security measures, the move operationalizes. What a terrible word. That's like so how Donald Rumsfeld used to turn all these nouns into verbs. One of Trump's central campaign promises to stem the flow of migrants entering the United States, and a declaration of national emergency that he signed shortly after being sworn in. Border Patrol reported roughly 100,000 migrant encounters. I kind of love that word. I imagine them floating down from the sky, like from a UFO, like a figure that is historically high, but down from a record of more than 300,000 the year before. The troops will join about 2,500 Army Reserve and National Guardsmen, though their specific tasks remain to be seen, like getting coffee, getting donuts, whatever. In related news, the Justice Department said that it would shift focus to immigration priorities, including utilizing the FBI's terrorism task force to assist in efforts and ordering federal prosecutors to probe interference by state and local officials. So yeah, basically, I think the big story here really has been that the Department of Justice, the feds, have given an order that to their prosecutors to investigate and potentially prosecute any state or local official who refuses to cooperate with mass deportations. They are saying that the supremacy clause of the United States Constitution, which says that when there's a conflict between federal and state law, federal law prevails, is guides this. I do have to say that this for people who are federal, who believe in states' rights and local rights, local authority. It's kind of a conflict, right? Because a lot of people who favor states' rights tend to be conservative, but conservatives are also the people who want these deportations. So you kind of can't, you're going to be giving up one thing you care about to get something else that you care about.
Yeah, I already know producer Robbie. I mean, I think everybody knows where we stand on this. And especially, I mean, I get it. You got to turn off the tap at some point. This is his subject that he's passionate about, because I'm not a conservative. Like, I'm pro the dreamers. They're already here. Let's not upend their lives. And, people that have been here as children, they were nothing more than luggage for somebody, whether it's their parents or however they got here. It's not their fault. They're here. Let's not be cruel and upend them. And the people that had their time to whatever it is to process their papers through the app that Trump canceled like 20 minutes after the inauguration. Like that's just cruel. That's just they were doing the app, they were doing the thing, and they're that's just mean. Like I'm okay with that. Cut off the tap. Yes, and but I'm also not a conservative. Producer Robbie, on the other hand, has a different view of all this. So I know he wants to say something. I could see him champing at the bit there.
Yeah, well,
so
as long as that
I'm gonna pop him in. Yeah, well, we can ask him right now. I'm gonna pop him in.
All right. But wait, but the question for me is not like what we're gonna do about immigration, because we've talked about that a lot already.
But the states' rights thing.
No, but I am curious what you think about that, right? Because normally. Sure. Conservatives are very they're passionate about local and states' rights, about the rights of municipalities to control their own destiny, and this definitely this goes against that, right? This Trump order to say, oh, if you're not going to follow our lead on this, we're not only going to be pissed, you're not only going to not get a Christmas card next year, we're going to throw you in prison as an official.
Well, I mean, states' rights died. I mean, let's be honest, on April 9th, 1865 at Appomattox Courthouse. That is when states' rights died. If a state goes out, and like, say, for example, here in Montana, the state legislature passed a law saying that if you want to have a fully automatic rifle, like an actual machine gun, which is outlawed by the Hughes Amendment by the federal government, as long as it was manufactured here in Montana and you didn't go across state lines with it, then you could do it because it's a states' rights issue. The federal government then responded saying, well, if you do this, we will cut off all of your transportation and education funding. So let's be honest. Our states are not independent. They're not sovereign. States' rights is dead. It's been dead for 160 years.
Now, so, if Montana, the counter argument would be if Montana felt strongly about the Montanans' God-given right to carry military hardware
to
Walmart, then they were they were independent and
Yep.
good, hardworking, pull yourself up by your bootstraps folks. They could do without the federal highway funding
I
and
agree.
just raise taxes or whatever they want to do, hold a bake sale to get the money that
Yep.
they need to maintain their highways.
Oh, I completely agree. I mean, the way that I would do it, like if I was the governor, I would say, okay, well, that's fine. Then the state of Montana, we will no longer send federal income tax or any other kind of federal taxes to you. We'll fund ourselves.
Wait,
So, I mean,
now
that's
just
how I would
sounds
do
like
it.
it's a pissing contest
Of course it
between
is.
a state and
Well,
the
that's what it
feds
is.
in
That's
Washington.
that's the whole point, right? I mean, here's what people don't understand. The federal government is a creation of the states, not the other way around. And
Sure.
the ninth and 10th amendments are specifically clear that whatever powers are not given to the federal government are reserved to the states and the people. And they felt so strongly about it that those two amendments say basically the exact same thing. But I mean, let's be honest though.
It bore repeating.
It's a myth. We don't have states anymore. We have provinces.
Well, we do have states' rights. I mean, education, for example, is controlled by the states and municipalities. We talked about like that a little bit yesterday. I mean,
Yeah, we
Sure.
touched on it.
But the feds get to weigh in, though. I mean, let's be honest.
they get to weigh in, but it's like,
Yeah.
but it's definitely a states' rights issue. I mean,
No, hey, right there, I agree with you. But as far as immigration goes and stuff, I mean, if I believe that the federal government would actually secure the border, I would be on board with Team Manila about the Dreamers. Fine, if you're already here, you got brought in a suitcase. Your mama flew in, dropped you 3 hours after she got here on the airport. You could stay, whatever, provided going forward that it ends. It's never going to end. It's never going to stop. And that's the whole issue. You can't compromise or negotiate with somebody who has zero interest in compromising or working with you. If they're going to keep on screwing you. So like, say, for example, if I keep going, if I just keep stealing your cartoons, Ted, and I just keep posting them and you keep
As your
asking me,
own?
yeah. And I just keep, and then
People
you
have
just
done
reach
that.
out to me, Ted. Well, I haven't, not yet. I might though. But if you just keep asking me, hey, Robbie, would you stop doing this? I say, oh, sure. Yeah, not a problem. I'll stop doing it next week. It's not a problem. And I keep lying to you for 40 years. It might come to a point where you realize that maybe I'm not negotiating with you in good faith and you have to do something about it. That's where we are right now with immigration.
well,
Let's
you
be
know about
honest.
my love of flamethrower drones. That's my reply to that question.
Don't give Robbie
Well,
ideas with the border. That's
hey,
all I
listen.
gotta say.
Drones are so cool.
I want to import those sharks from India. That's what I want to do. They need a new ecosystem.
They do. No, they're not
They
doing well.
100% do.
They
And the
cleaner
Rio
water.
Grande, hey, the Rio Grande is nice. There's clean water. There's plenty of food. I have no problem with this.
All right, we are moving on here.
This is crazy. Thank you, producer Robbie.
President Trump levied the threat of tariffs against Russia, saying that unless a deal is made to end Russia's war against Ukraine, he'll have no other choice but to issue new sanctions. Settle now and stop this ridiculous war, Trump wrote on his social media site Truth Social. If we don't make a deal, and soon, I have no other choice but to put high levels of taxes, tariffs, and sanctions on anything being sold by Russia to the United States and various other participating countries. We can do it the easy way or the hard way, and the easy way is always better, Trump wrote. No more lives should be lost, all caps. His predecessor, Biden, and allied nations already levied sanctions on Russia, of course, as the years-long conflict continued. On January 10th, Biden and the UK slapped simultaneous sanctions on Gazprom Neft and Surjutne Flegas, two of Russia's major oil producers, along with dozens of their subsidiaries. My take on this, Manila, is that this is just Trump's posturing.
Sure.
We all know that Trump and Putin are pretty much on the same page about where the Russia-Ukraine war has to end. Russia is going to basically keep the Donbass and Crimea. They're going to get some sort of agreement not to join NATO from rump Ukraine, and that'll be it.
Totally.
But I think he's just saying this for public consumption. I wouldn't be at all
For
surprised.
domestic consumption.
Domestic consumption. I wouldn't be at all surprised if he called Putin and said, hey, I'm going to have to beat you up a little bit on social media, but, we're cool. We know that they do that. We know that they talk to each other.
Of course. It's Playhouse 90. Like, I mean, I think anyone that's in the know understands that this is meant to gin up for, support for him as he enters the White House. He's back in the fray, and he's got to, be a blowhard and act tough. And he, this is posturing. Like I said, this is like one of those contentious car deals where the dealership, it's the end of the month, they have marks they have to hit, and the dealership really that they want to move that unit. And you found this one special car with all the specs it's perfect, that perfect color of blue you want, the interior, it's everything you want. Both parties want the same thing. The dealership wants to move the unit.
Where you're going to end up.
You want to take it home. You want to take that baby home. But both of you are going to blow hard at each other. You're going to tell the salesman, screw you. What do you, what, $500 off?
I'll take the bus.
Right. And then the salesman's going to come back and go, you told me this is the perfect color. Nobody else in the area has this color. What are you going to do?
Drive in an hour?
Right. It's got somebody. I got somebody on the horn right now that wants to come get it. And both of you are going to fight. And 6 hours later, you're going to go home with that car.
That's
somewhere in the middle. Meet somewhere in the middle. That's what this is. And Trump is a sales guy. Mm-hmm. I mean, ultimately, that's what he is. He's a New York real estate guy. This is what he does. So,
yeah.
And Vladimir Putin is, no dummy, in case you haven't heard.
He's not. He is not a dummy. All right, let's move on.
Negotiate.
Yemen's Houthi rebels released the crew of the Galaxy Leader, that's a vehicle carrier, seized in November of 2023. So they've been in captivity for 14 months at the end of their attacks on shipping in the Red Sea corridor over the Israel-Hamas war. The move by the Iranian-backed Houthis marks their latest effort to de-escalate their attacks following the Gaza ceasefire. However, it came as Trump moved to reinstate a terrorism designation he made on the group late in his first term that was then revoked by Biden, which now sets the stage for new tensions with those rebels. The Houthis said that they let the sailors go after mediation by Oman. Oman is a sultanate on the eastern edge of the Arabian Peninsula, in other words, just south of Saudi Arabia, that's long been an interlocutor with the Houthis. A Royal Air Force of Oman jet took a flight to Yemen early yesterday and took off again about an hour later after the Houthi announcement with the crew, who smiled as they stepped off into freedom in Muscat. Muscat is the capital of Oman.
Which I've been. Beautiful place.
I have to.
I love the Omanis. I love Muscat. I love it.
Oman is very well run. It's a very well run country.
And
it has a beautiful beach.
Yes, absolutely. I found it more beautiful than the Emirates.
Yeah, no, it is objectively. It's far more chill too.
Oh yeah, it's so much more chill. Like it's still natural. Although I heard that's about to change.
Really?
Going forward,
Are they tarting it up?
Yeah, I heard they're gonna try to Dubai it up. So I don't know, but that's where these people are.
Yemen.
Well, gentrification, Ted.
It could happen.
It's going into the neighborhood. So maybe that's the long-term plan is, why you have to keep upending whatever government is in power in Yemen. And the food is amazing. I got to say,
the food is good. That's
true. I like Yemeni food. But this whole thing right here, this is like, come on. I'm not saying it's great that these people were in captivity the last 14 months, but look at the condition. Let me take the video back. Like, look at the condition of these guys. Like they were not beaten up. They were not like they're healthy. They're a lot of them were Filipino. They're Mexican, apparently, Romanian, Bulgarians. Like, I'm not saying this is great that they were held in captivity, but even still, you often like when you look at, let's say, certain countries versus another, when you have people released from captivity.
The three Israelis who were released by Hamas recently, they looked great.
They looked great, and they were able to. They literally were well enough to show up to Trump's inauguration, literally the next day.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying.
I got to say that's pretty much the last thing I would have wanted to do.
Oh, for sure.
I would be like, I have a long date with a bathtub in a luxury hotel.
I'd be like, no fucking way I'm going to be used as some ornament for Trump.
Yeah, fuck that. I would have just been like,
no.
International travel. Like, no, just no.
No, like, fuck off. I'm with my family and I want to be at home.
Yeah, no, this reminds me of like, there was a plane that was trying to take off from Taipei during a typhoon, and it hit some construction equipment that was unfortunately, they cleared them for takeoff on a runway that had construction equipment on it. So the plane, broke apart, and there was a fire, and a lot of people died. But there was a guy who was an American tech bro on the company. He was like on the plane. He survived. He was a CEO, and he just disappeared. Like, they didn't find his body. They assumed that he had
What?
survived because he had they had reason to believe that section of the
I
plane
was going to ask,
made it.
why did you say he survived if nobody found any evidence?
We know that he survived because basically he walked off into Taipei proper and checked himself into like a 4-star hotel, and like decided like, it's me time and I don't want to be bothered. And at some point his family was like freaking out. His company was freaking out. The share prices were tanking. And finally they found him like a week later at the hotel, and he was like, oh, it's like, oh, your family wants to talk to you. No, I don't want to talk to him. So he was just basically in shock, and just ordering room service and watching TV and taking, baths. And I don't know that I blame him.
I do not blame him.
Self-care.
Yeah, that's, yeah. If I were those, I think all 3 of the American Jews that were released, I think they were all women. I could be wrong. I think they were.
Well, these days you never can be sure. But they identified as women.
They presented as.
Yes.
As
we're
women.
not sure what they were assigned at birth.
That's true. Anyway,
they looked like they were assigned to be women.
I thought they were Jewish American women, and being a woman too, I'd have been like, fuck you, Trump. I am not going to be there on stage with you. I'm going to chill with my family, and I have a date with the bathtub.
A couple months later, sure.
Yeah. Not the next day. Literally the next day. No way. No way. That I'm going to be used, like you said, for the photo op, and my freedom has been politicized. No, I don't want that anymore. I want, to be with my family. That's just me. But I wonder if somehow all 3 of them, like if a deal was brokered, because, a lot of people say that Trump brokered that release and negotiated. Well, I guess
he influenced it. Well, I guess he jointly negotiated, right? It seems like it was a joint effort, maybe close to 50-50. But obviously the outgoing administration took lead, had to necessarily.
Well, they had to, right? Because they are the government. And but I wonder if that was part of the deal, was like, hey, we get them released on such and such date, right? Just like you and I talked about with the whole Carter-Iran hostage release, Carter versus Reagan, and they held him. I wonder if there's a little bit of that going on.
I get to play show off.
Right. And Trump was like, all right, my Jewish Americans, my Jews, because he says, my blacks, my Asians, my Jews, you're coming. I'm gifting you the opportunity to be at my inauguration.
Right. Well, I mean, I bet there was lots of good food, probably better than whatever they were able to get down in the Hamas tunnel.
Well,
I would imagine.
Maybe.
By the way, did you see that? And we do have to get to our last headline. But did you see the footage of Hamas post ceasefire? Hamas is re-patrolling Gaza. They're in brand new spiffy uniforms. They look really great, clean shaven, looking kick-ass, and they're driving around in brand new trucks, all spick and span and clean.
Toyota Hilux.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like the they like the Forerunners and the things that look like Forerunners.
They really do. Toyota Land Cruisers.
Yep, that's their thing.
But I don't know. Those are really expensive these days, Ted. So
everything's
I think the Land
like
Cruiser's
shiny.
out.
There's no dust on their boots, and like it's kind of like, okay, so wait, so you fuckers have been living underground for over a year? Like, where have you? I mean, you look pretty good. It's kind of like mysterious. The only thing
I have not seen those pictures.
They look fucking great. The only difference is that a lot of them don't have computers anymore because the internet's down, because the Israelis have blown it up. But like, so
I thought you were going to say because you're afraid it was going to blow up on them.
The other thing that's just like we talked about would happen is now happening. We did predict this, that like all these refugees are going back to their to the pile of rubble where their house used to be. And I'm like, so what are they going to do? I mean, they don't have any money. They have no account. Even if they had a bank account, there's no way to access it because the bank is gone.
The UN has a great refugee program, I guess.
I don't know. It's 2 million people. I mean,
I'm joking. That's sarcasm.
Yeah, no, okay. All right, let's move on here.
One last story before we get to our main topic.
Yes. Saudi Arabia's crown prince said earlier today, that the kingdom wants to invest $600 billion in the U.S. over the next 4 years. This came after Trump earlier put a price tag on returning to the kingdom as his first foreign trip. In other words, Trump's like, I'll come to Riyadh, but we're going to need $600 billion in investments. Trump's 2017 trip to Saudi Arabia upended a tradition of U.S. presidents first heading to the UK as their first trip abroad. It also underscored his administration's ties to the Gulf states, as his eponymous real estate company has pursued deals across the region as well. Comments from Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, who was busy washing his bone saw at the time, reported early today by the state-run Saudi press agency, came in a phone call with Trump. It marked Trump's first call with a foreign leader since his inauguration. The Crown Prince affirmed the kingdom's intention to broaden its investments and trade with the U.S. over the next 4 years in the amount of $600 billion and potentially beyond that, the report said. The readout didn't elaborate on where those investments in trade could be placed, most of them with Clovis, I think. The U.S. in recent years has increasingly pulled away from relying on Saudi oil exports, which was once the bedrock of their relationship for decades. Saudi sovereign wealth funds have taken large stakes in American businesses while also looking at sports as well. And even though the kingdom of Saudi Arabia is bloodthirsty, woman-hating, gay-hating, and pretty much as repulsive and repugnant as a government can be, here on the TMI show, if you guys want to buy the show and put us on salary, we'll take that money.
Totally go on Saudi TV.
Totally. Yeah. And we'll say nice to every
Mohammed bin Salman, MBS.
We'll always talk about MBS.
Hear us out.
We love you. We won't talk about the bone saw too much. Or we'll say it's the best bone saw. The
shake bone saw.
You have the sharpest.
That's the B. That's the B. That's the B in MBS.
The extra B is
Mohammed bone saw bin Salman. That's the B. Yep. Brother, hear me out. I heard you're expanding your influence in the U.S.
Chop as many heads off adulteresses as you want.
Have as many wives. He has several wives, lots of kids.
Well, that's legal.
Look, it's
in
only
fact, it's
as
a
legal.
Man's obligation, right? If you can afford it, you're meant to.
If you can afford it, I was going to say that's the catch: is you can only have as many wives and children as you can financially bear the burden for.
Not to mention that you can withstand psychologically.
Well, I think they have their own quarters though, so that's the best part.
Man.
I think for both parties.
A lot of
the wives do. They have their own quarters.
Would pay not to have 4 wives.
Well, yes, but if you have your own quarters, you have your own private quarters, and then your shared quarters. Each wife has their own private quarters. That's totally
that's how that
thing.
works. And apparently, it's kind of like Big Love, right? Like they know each other.
I've never seen that.
They help each other out. They can
that part
watch
I do
each
know.
other's kids and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm gonna go walk my cheetah. Can you watch my kids?
That is a thing. If people don't know, this is really a thing.
Well, when the cheetahs get the zoomies, look out.
If they pull, well
look,
I want to know,
right?
Ted. I want to know where the $600 billion will be invested, because obviously I'm hoping some of it comes this way to the TMI show.
Yeah, just a little bit.
But where do you think it's going to go?
1%. Yeah,
totally. Where do you think it's going to go? Where's the 600? Obviously, it's trying to. Why does he need to try to curry influence with Trump?
Tech and energy, right? Obviously.
He doesn't need to curry influence with Trump. It's like he's
tech, energy, education. They like to have influence in universities, research facilities.
Well, so we're going to have a bunch of their.
They're going to invest in OpenAI, all that kind of.
Those
crap.
Schools. Oh gosh, what's it called? I'm having brain farts this morning. Too much partying in the 90s. I'm moving to the next topic.
So true. Do we have our guest ready
catching up? Oh yeah, our guest is there.
Is he chomping at the bit?
Yeah, he's there, ready to rock And
All
we'll
right.
explain. We'll
All
explain
right.
why we're saying this, guys.
It's like
Sit
I want
tight
to rock and roll and party every day,
all night.
all night long. American rock and rolled all night long and partied every day, but then baby boomers started to die of old age. Generation Xers started having babies. Millennials fell in love with their iPhones, and the pandemic kept everybody locked up. Only 4% of Americans attended or hosted any social event on an average weekend or holiday in 2023. That, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, who knew that they kept track of such things?
I didn't know that.
A 35%.
Did you know that?
I did not know
Before
that.
this article we
That
read?
is a 35% decline since 20 years earlier. In the high times of partying during the invasion of Iraq in 2004, we were all partying then. Party City announced that it will close after years of crappy sales. Teenagers are engaging in markedly fewer risky behaviors than they used to. A major cause is that teenagers are having fewer parties. After the Spanish flu pandemic, Americans raged through the roaring 1920s. Why are we not having our own roaring 1920s? Is life without fun worth living? We're going to ask if ennui and angst are driving our politics and whether we'll ever do things that we'd regret if we remembered them ever again. Scott Stantis is joining us for this. He's the cartoonist of the Chicago Tribune, creator of the comic strip Prickly City, contributor to Center Clip, winner of the Sigma Delta Chi Journalism Award, and the co-host of the DMZ America podcast with me, Ted Rall. Scott, as always, thanks for joining us here.
Hey, thanks for having me. Thanks for inviting me to the party, man.
First
Most
question.
importantly, party animal, Ted. You forgot to give him the proper titling.
I
party
happen to
animal.
know that Scott Stantis does know how to party. I know that to be true.
Yeah, there are stories.
There are stories
Besties
that are best left undiscussed. But Scott, maybe you should. What would you see? Do you want to share like an example of one of the wildest parties or party nights that you've ever had?
Oh, I can't give you the top ones, but I can give the most wild. Okay, I had a okay, I'm going to clean it up for general audiences, but it's I had a studio in Los Angeles in the 80s. You can do the math. Okay. So me and a buddy had just found a new studio. So we were throwing a big shindig. It turned into a huge shindig. There were some, how can I put this, accelerants that were consumed during the party. The party broke up at 9:30 in the morning. Just that's the kind of party. And what happened was it all ended up going to a Denny's because as they so often do.
Yes. That was the thing. That was the thing. We all did that in LA. That's what we do.
Is important.
Oh yeah, it was very important. And so I'm stunned. The statistic you mentioned, 4%. I mean, that is crazy how low that is. I mean, that's just bizarre. And I think there's a couple of factors. First off, okay, you had the pandemic, so everyone, sequestered themselves. You have helicopter parenting. So you said teenagers are doing much less dangerous behavior, although I'm not sure what dangerous behavior is.
Lame.
Well,
I know.
Obviously
it really is.
They're talking about drugs and over drinking.
And sex.
Or like a lot of sex.
Yeah, maybe sex.
And
lame.
by the way,
lame.
It's so lame because here's the thing. I mean, a statistic you did not mention has come out in other stories is that the younger generation is having far less sex than
that's true.
And yes, I'm going, what is wrong with you?
Yeah, literally people in their 60s are having more sex than people in their 20s. Like now.
Yeah.
Not the
1960s, but people who are literally 60 years of age or older
are boning more. Or being boned. Yeah.
Well, I've got a couple. I mean, so I'm at the tail end, right, of Gen X at the borderlands of the millennials. I'm a little too old to be.
Yeah, you're on the
cusp
we're both cusp kids. I'm an old cusp kid. I'm as old as you can possibly be and be Gen X.
Right. And I'm at the other end of that. So what I'll say is I was the last group of kids that lived a life pre-smartphone, pre-social media, and thank God, because I look back now to the late 90s and the house parties that we were at and the things that we did. Shotgunning beer cans, keggers, all of that, the raging house parties, like, and God knows, the different things that we lit up to inhale. Thank God it wasn't documented by somebody's stupid smartphone, that our living in the moment
Oh, yeah.
wasn't being stolen by electronics, that our actual experience, our lived experience, was an actual lived experience, not meant for TV, not meant for social media, not meant for sharing outside of the people that were in that room or in that backyard or in
Right.
that den. It was meant for us, for the dozen or 30 or 50 or
And you
100
don't have
plus.
to worry
this is
about your
LA.
future employer finding
Yes.
out.
And I think that changes a lot of the dynamic for the kids being so freaking lame today, that they don't have. I mean, we had house parties in the 90s in LA. Every weekend, somebody's parents were out of town and somebody was hosting a party.
Oh,
And
sure.
people don't do that anymore.
No, they don't.
Yeah. No, Manila, let me ask you this. Ted and I, in our other lives on DMZ America, have talked about one of the topics we've brought up, and actually has gotten a lot of pushback, is if you could go back in time and kill social media in its crib, would you do it?
Ooh.
And the internet.
Internet.
Not really the internet writ large.
Really? I just think the whole
I'd kill
thing.
The whole thing.
Here's my.
I'd do it. I would do it.
Yeah, here's my
I'd go
reason.
analog.
Because we've seen both.
Yes.
And obviously the internet has a lot of advantages, but I think we can fairly assess, like,
it hasn't made us smarter.
Which was better?
No, because
damn sure.
Because of my age, because I'm right at that perfect delineation between analog and internet kid. I'm not native to the internet, but I remember learning about what the internet was while I was still young, right? Before I was like a full adult, before I was 18, the internet became a thing. So I have a good grasp on what life was like before everybody got before it proliferated and became the new life. It became life. It has substituted for real life.
That's
and
well said.
I think kids that are younger, like the young millennials, and certainly now the Gen Zers, we've seen so many reports of how social media and the internet has poisoned their brains, has poisoned their self-image, has caused them depression. And I'll tell you, man, you get out there and you do a couple keggers, you smoke a couple joints, you go to the beach, you're not going to be that depressed.
Also,
right?
it is fucking.
Or you get the Spravato, Ted.
It's terrible for the economy. So I took this class on feminism class back when it was actually a useful subject to study at Barnard in the early 90s. And one of the things that my professor said that was really interesting was that, and I think this is true about not just women's work, but that whenever there's a technological advance that's sold as a way to make our lives easier, two things happen. One is that your life doesn't actually become easier because the expectations merely change. A good example, the vacuum cleaner. When the vacuum cleaner was invented, it was like, well, it was sold like housewives will be able to keep their homes much cleaner, much more easily. They'll have more time to whatever, do other things. But actually, all that happened was that the expectation level of how clean your floor needed to be rose because everybody had a vacuum cleaner, right? So you couldn't have like any bit of like dust. And so, and what also happened is that the money, the extra efficiency, the productivity that came from this technology devolved not to the user, but to the manufacturer. So, or like in cartooning, for example, Scott, you probably remember this, but I mean, you've been doing this a little longer than I have, but there was a time when coloring, political cartoons were always black and white. And if someone needed a cartoon in color for some reason, you could charge more for the color cartoon. You could, I used to charge twice as much. It was a lot of work. It was a lot harder than doing it now in Photoshop, but it was like you got paid more. And so it was like, okay. Then Photoshop and other programs were invented that made coloring cartoons much easier. Well, what happened is that the expectation of the editors was that all cartoons should become available in color. and we were no longer
Oh, I
able to
see.
charge a premium. And in fact, you can't really sell black and white cartoons anymore for like there's no differential. Either some papers run them in black and white, some run them in
So
color.
it's just a preference at that
But
point.
so the same thing happened here with the. I mean, if you'll notice, like, think about like all of the lines of business that have been absolutely decimated by the internet. Music, for example. I mean, I read that like, the band Blondie was snorting $12 million worth of cocaine a year. Okay, well now they couldn't make $12 million a year now because like there's no way to make for anyone. Like Lady Gaga maybe, but that's about it.
So the coke dealers, as usual, are the ones who suffer the most.
Always.
That's right.
They're the innocent victims in all of it. And like the thing is, like, so the internet destroyed print newspapers and therefore it destroyed journalism.
Well, video killed the radio star, my friend.
It destroyed radio. I mean, think about it. We're doing this here instead of like, on KFI AM 640 Los Angeles, where I used to be,
right,
where I got paid a nice salary. So all of these lines of business have been destroyed. And then the tech bros end up taking all this money, and it's not going back into the economy because they're hardly hiring anyone. They've eliminated sectors that hired millions of people, and they're replacing them with sectors that hire tens of thousands of people.
I would say those tech bros are to blame for why society, and this article that Ted and I are referring to, and I don't know if he sent it to you, Scott, but it's in the Atlantic. Right. And I know some people are going to the Atlantic and turn their nose up to it, that, thumb their nose that it's, some East Coast,
well, it's a Democratic Party rag, but it is a good Democratic Party rag. But
there's interesting stuff in there. And that's where I stumbled across this article. And I thought, well, that's interesting. First of all, that why does the Bureau of Labor Statistics, why do they keep track of our partying? Number one, I didn't know that.
That's a little weird. Right.
And how do I get a job in that section, that agency, that little department in the agency?
Could you imagine, Manila? You have to go out amongst American and go and party as hard as you
need to go to every
can.
party that you can possibly go to next weekend. Document the number of people there. Ask them what they're drinking. Can I join it?
Well, you're close to the BLS. I can point you right to where it is. It's right by the side entrance to the train station there in downtown DC.
Is it right there?
It's like literally across the street from the side entrance to Union Station. I biked by there like a few months ago. Yeah.
Well, so look, first of all, I really didn't know that was a thing, that we kept track of people's partying behavior, but I guess it is reflected in Party City of all things, going out of business, right? And then to learn that only 4%, so let's be generous and say the BLS couldn't track everybody's parties, and say only 5%, maybe let's say even 10% of Americans, let's overallow. 10% of Americans went to or hosted parties like in the last year or two.
I've got to agree with this.
Pandemic.
I agree with these numbers. I mean, first of all, like in my personal line of work, Scott, you must remember this. In the 90s, holiday season was busy for parties. I mean, business parties. Every magazine threw one. Every Wall Street company threw one. Every bank threw one. And you might be in a different sector, but your buddy is working in, for the NFL, invites you as a +1. It's like there's always like, I mean, from the first 3 weeks of December for me, where I would often be double, triple booked the same night for a party, a holiday party.
Well, let me throw something.
There's none at all.
Let me throw out another statistic about that is the kind of on the face of it seemed to be anti this subject, but it's actually very much tied into it. And that's religion. For the first time in American history, less than 50% of Americans go to church on a regular basis. Why the diminishment? Well, let's look at social media. What does social media offer that religion offered? Sure, people went because they believed in God. Let's just put that aside for a moment and say, but what was the real driving force to go to church for centuries?
Community.
You built community, socializing, a sense of belonging. All of that happens in your phone. Now you talk about partying. You can have a sense of community in a phone. You can go to sites and have some extension of a sexual experience, any kind that you can possibly imagine.
Sure.
As so that subtracts that. I was out to dinner the other night, and this was really, really sad. All the tables around us, there were 3 tables around us that had families, clearly, mother, father, children. Every single member of that party, and you know what I'm about to say.
Yes, I do.
Was on their phone. They were not talking to each other.
Right.
There was no socialization. There was no
And those are the good
communication.
ones. Those are the ones who went out.
Yeah, at least they were able to, get, dinner night app and send it to each other and somehow get in the same car. But it was it was sad. It was just sad. And how many people now in your life have you met who are 35 and younger, who have, who you try to, it's one of the reasons I left the Chicago Tribune, quite frankly. I was in the break room and talking to particularly the males, and I use the word loosely. You'd walk up, you'd be in the break room to get a cup of coffee or some tea. And I go, hey, how's it going? And I can't tell you how many of the new hires would look at you, kind of go, their eyes would bug out, and then they'd skitter away like a rodent.
I've experienced this.
They were afraid.
Yes.
What do you want?
I experienced this. This is pre-pandemic, and
yes.
I experienced this at RT America, where some of the younger, and I thought, oh, gee, well, maybe maybe they thought I was going to be some diva asshole because I'm one of the anchors, and and they were afraid of me. Okay, fine, but again, bump into them again in the break room, getting water, getting coffee. Hey, how's it going? Hi.
And they run away.
None of these younger Gen Zers had the ability to communicate eyeball to eyeball. And I blame they have no problem smiling and snickering and laughing to themselves while they're on their phone in the break room looking at their phone. But the moment I said, hey, so-and-so, how's it going?
And this
same response.
And it's important that we're not saying these darn kids today and their crazy gadgets, but this is a quantum change in our culture, because huge. Like I said, they're not having
sex. They're not having kids. They're not getting married.
This is generational warfare flipped on its head. For millions of years, every generation looked at the younger generation and said, turn down that fucking loud music, calm the fuck down, quit fucking as much, quit drinking as much. And now for the first time, olds are looking down at the young and being like, Jesus Christ, go outside. You guys are boring. Do something, break a law.
Go grab a fucking bong or something. Go, come on, man.
They're doing that.
Be 18 and don't pay. Do something.
Be 20. Do a dine and dash, right? Be a kid. Be a teenager. And they're not doing that. And that is all part of socializing. And I don't mean socializing like partying. I mean
the socializing is now in the virtual space.
Yeah, but that's.
And it's and it makes sense. Horrible. For example, just taking dating as an example. I mean, it's obviously, we all remember the bar scene. If you were determined to get laid, it's even the best bar that you knew really well. That was a hit or miss proposition. It might happen, it might not happen. More likely than not, it wasn't going to happen. It could happen.
They don't know how to hit on each other at a bar, guys.
But with the right app, it's almost a 99% certainty that you're going to be able to find someone who is going to be into you and maybe even fits certain parameters.
That's the thing. Exactly. They want the security through an app versus the thrill of approaching a pretty girl or whatever. Or if you're shot down, okay, you're shot down. But it makes you tough.
But it's systemic, right, Manila? I mean, let's just say you yourself as an individual 26-year-old decide I heard the TMI show, those old fucks on there, they're right. I'm going to break the mold. I'm going out to a bar tonight and I'm going to rage.
For it.
Well, you're there by yourself. Okay.
That's right. Because hardly anyone's there.
So that's the problem. You can't, this is like when people say, liberals say, what if you start recycling,
make your own app.
No, you can't.
Make your own Twitter.
It's it's a systemic issue. You can't make the change by yourself. This is just the reality now. So, there's nothing really to be done, but I do think it's sort of it's sort of like climate change. There's nothing to change it now. It's too late to change it. But now we're in mitigation mode, and we have to sort of figure out what to do about it now that we're here. And I mean, there's grave psychological problems here. I mean, there's an escalating suicide rate. The kids are medicated up the yin yang if they're lucky. The good ones are. Then there's the crazy ones who aren't medicated but should be. Everyone's depressed as shit. Everyone feels like they're missing connection. I mean, look, there are advantages. Like Scott and I maintain our friendship, even though we don't get to see each other very often because we live, about 1,000 miles apart. But that's great. It's an advantage, but it's still not the same as your bud who you hang out with.
Look,
I mean, my son who asked me about this recently. He's like, "Well, what did you guys used to do?" And I was like, "Well, frankly, I had maybe half a dozen friends when I was his age, and we went out 3-4 nights a week to drinking and trying to pick up girls. Sometimes we didn't pick up girls, and it was like and we were up until even 2 in the morning, even on a weeknight, and then other nights we just have a more chill night. We went to the movies. Sometimes we would rent a Blockbuster night if we're chill, but we didn't have home that. 2-3 nights a week, maybe at most.
Yes.
Always out buying records at the record store,
going to the record store, coming through the records,
talking to the record store dude, and and trying not to be shamed, and asking about
talking
what's
to everybody. Cool. That's the thing.
And you also touched on a really important point, and you just glossed over it. And I don't think you made it, and that's being rejected. And that is part of the cultural and societal, and frankly, our species element of existence, and that's being wiped out.
It makes you
spoken
boys
like
tough.
A Republican.
It makes you
human.
tough. So you're not this snowflake because life is gonna reject you. Life is gonna chew you up and spit you out in real IRL in real life. I mean, sure, I may look like a middle-aged suburban mom now, but once upon a time, I was a hot dish in the 90s and early 2000s in LA, right? I mean, I scarcely ever had to buy myself a drink when I stepped out. I could be broke as hell and step out, and a gentleman was always going to buy me a drink. And I was taught based, look at these historic images that we're looking at of, dinner parties or whatever.
Look how beautiful
my family, because they partied and they taught me good social graces. So I wasn't going to be a bitch to some ugly dude that bought me a drink. I would, as a lady, you say, thank you. And you say, thank you for this drink, offering to buy me a drink. Like, what's your name? Blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm going to go sit with my girlfriends now, but I appreciate you, spend a couple minutes, flatter the guy, be nice, and walk away. Girls don't know how to do that anymore. They're fucking mean. I've watched it happen when a boy has the, I'm a boy mom. Because nobody on either side knows how to talk to other humans. I've seen girls literally videotape and talk shit to the guy that's trying to hit on her at the bar. And I'm going, you little bitch. Like, did nobody teach you any social graces?
Well, because
skills?
That person doesn't feel like the dude who bought the drink that they're turning down, which they have every right to turn down, is a human being, and they don't know, they're not used to viewing him as a human being, because online you could just click away.
Correct. Or you could send a nasty, like a nasty gram, or send a mean meme to him to reject him. But now that you're in real life, like, I've seen women, I have a hard time calling them women because they're girls to me at this point, right? I mean, much younger than half my age at the bars, and I'm going, if the boy, in this day and age, if the boy has the guts to even approach a girl in this day and age, that girl should be so flattered that he, I mean, it's more now than ever that the boy needed to gather the guts. I mean, the girls should understand that.
It was always scary, but
It was always scary. And by the way, just to be clear, that women and people have been mean for a long time.
Sure.
In high school, I remember approaching a girl that I was attracted to, and asked her, and I mean, we were standing in line, and I said, "Hey, would you want to go out sometime?" And she looks at me and says, "I'll think about it," and walked away.
Well, that's not the worst thing
It's
that
not
you could have
horrible.
This was in front of
"Oh,
other
no,
people.
Fat ass.
Well, they wouldn't have said that because that
That's
wouldn't have
not
been accurate.
horrible.
But
I mean,
it wasn't
but
great.
that's
It
all
was.
part. But
But that was part.
that gave
But
you
my point is, I
character.
live to talk about it. I live to experience and say,
It
"Oh,
taught you
okay."
it gave you some character building, like it made you tough, Scott. So you're not, running away crying if somebody said they didn't like this cartoon of yours.
Oh, I do that. That's Ted. Let's be clear.
We do that when the awards are announced and we're not the winners.
Yeah, we
which is
become the
every
biggest
year.
bitches ever.
Yeah,
Ever.
we never win.
But that's not, Ted and I don't know if you're as obsessed with generational divides as Ted and I are, because Ted and I often like talk about books and other things that, these oddities that are well reserved for, this group, that group, that group. And it's just a clear line in the sand. And one of them, when I read this article, I went, oh my God, Ted's going to love this article. That first of all, like I said, who knew that there was a whole agency in the US government that looks at this? But I guess it makes sense because then you tie it to like mental health.
Entertainment is a sector of the economy. That's
true. And mental health, which is what this has led to, is that people, in the same way that if you are out of a job for too long and you've been looking.
It's an economy. It's hospitality.
Sure,
restaurateurs,
food,
nightclubs, food. It's all those associated businesses.
But do you think
taxis? I drove
Uber.
a taxi. I drove night shift in a yellow cab throughout the 80s. Let me tell you, if there'd been no nightclubs, it would have been a problem.
That's true.
What are you doing after midnight? No one's, only reprobates were out at 4 o'clock in the morning, coming out of like the Anvil, Not a gay club. Not a gay club.
Oh,
go ahead.
Take your word for it. No, I was just agreeing with Ted. I can and getting back to the original article we talked about. Oh, full disclosure, I forgot to mention this. My son works for the Atlantic, so
cool.
He's one of the tech pros. But
very cool.
Getting back to that article, 4% socializing. That to me, the fact that we are a social species. And so the fact that it seems a vast number of people are having no actual social intercourse with other human beings, eye-to-eye contact, physical contact, and it doesn't. And we're not even talking sexual here.
1 per year, right?
Yeah. Oh, was that?
One?
That's astounding.
The 4% are only that 4% is like you just do one.
And so, for instance, my wife does not enjoy parties. I'm an extrovert. I like to go to them. I liked going. I liked socializing. I liked meeting new people. I liked engaging in conversation. It was hard for her, but because that was what was available to her as someone of the same generation, she sucked it up and she went and she socialized. And God bless her. She's an amazing person. I never understood her reticence to that, but that's a different podcast altogether. Going forward, how do you, we're faced with two choices, really. We deal with it. This is the new reality. And as fossils, we go, well, you darn kids. Or do we do what Australia did, which made it illegal, put an age limit on social media? That is, you had to be, the new law just instituted down there recently, you have to be 16 years or older to go on social media.
Assuming that they can enforce it. I don't know. 16 is
still
old.
Young.
It is.
Yeah, still young, I think.
Because brain development doesn't end until your 24th or 25th year. That's why
Yes.
I've always had issues with legalizing marijuana for people 18 years or older, or 21 or older. It should be, because it has, now studies are showing that marijuana has such a profound effect on brain development. You shouldn't be able to, probably shouldn't have, or you shouldn't be smoking it until you're about 25.
That's about when I stopped doing it.
Where in California were you
inverted?
Where in California were you raised?
Born and raised in LA, and more
Which
on
part?
The east side, where Whittier borders East LA. So
I know that part. I have family and friends there in Whittier.
Low riders back then, and there were parties on the street. I'm not even kidding. Like cruising Whittier Boulevard was a thing. That in and of itself was a street party, right? Everybody showed up looking with their with their great big 90s cha-cha, Aquanet hair, and your car shined up, the boys, polishing the rims on their cars and their lowriders. I mean, even that is a social activity that people
Yeah.
don't do anymore. I mean, you're just cruising down the street and everyone's catcalling each other car to car. I mean, just like, hey, nice rims. Like it was just a thing, but that was part of like socializing. And I feel like as we look at these images from like the 1960s, like a house party in the 1960s, number one, man, we don't dress as cool as we used to.
Oh, we do
look
not.
at this. Look what's happening. What's happening here?
That's the orange game. You pass it between.
Oh, there it is. There's the orange. Okay. I didn't see the orange. I thought, are they necking? But no, that wouldn't have been normal in the 60s. But this is, I think part of the reason that people can't negotiate with each other anymore. They can't figure out, how to make their marriages work. They can't figure out how to keep real friendships for any length of time, is because we aren't doing this. What we're looking at here, we don't have enough of this. And it trickles down to, I mean, God, what's going to happen, guys, 20, 30 years from now when we're, gray-haired old fogies in the home, and I don't know, President Dude Bro, whoever it's going to be, doesn't even know how to negotiate. Baron Trump doesn't know how to negotiate with, I don't know, whoever's in Russia at that point, 30 years from now. Like because they've never had to talk or communicate or, see eye to eye, mano a mano. They don't know how to do it. So what happens to the world other than the tech overlords become the oligarchs of the world? Is that what we're headed to?
I mean, it's a good question, right? I mean, if you think about someone awkward, like forget about Elon Musk, who's super awkward, but imagine even like a Mark Zuckerberg. He's pretty awkward, but he's not crazy awkward. I wouldn't feel as good about him going into President Zuckerberg in a potential nuclear showdown with China. I mean, whatever you want to say about Donald Trump, and there's many things to say, I think that he can get on the phone with Xi or Putin or, or Kim or anyone and just sort of like, okay, we're dudes. All right, let's talk this out. Where are you at? I'll tell you where I'm at. Let's see if we can like figure things out. I don't know if we're going to be able to get there, because without the possible social skills are super important. I'm saying this as, I'm an introvert, but still, I recognize that to be true. I mean,
I don't see that, Ted, but because I've seen you at parties.
I've
seen you at parties.
That's what alcohol is for.
Well, 2060, are we going to be seeing the president of the United States texting to, negotiate some hostage deal with the Iranian Ayatollah in the year 2060? Like what?
I predicted this a decade ago, and Ted can back me up, because it looked like technology was moving in this direction, and it definitely still is. That is, okay, you stay with me on this. I'll make it brief. I know we've kind of run over our time. 3D printers that print food. So you could literally say, I want lobster Nuremberg sandwich today, and it will print, it'll make it for you. You can put on your virtual reality goggles. They're developing treadmills to simulate running, walking, jumping, that kind of thing. You will never have to, by 2060, the technology will be such that you will never have to leave your apartment, that you can actually have, let's say, I want to go out and have sex with 3 supermodels. Well, there's a program for that. I truly believe that's the direction we're going. We're going to become more and more insular. We're going to become even less social. And the problem with that is then you become, the Matrix. You become the Matrix. You become,
right.
The tech world controls your life. And you're okay with that because your life is pretty awesome. Your emoji, you look awesome. You've got the abs, you've got the ass, you look fantastic.
Well, that's true.
Guys, but no one notices because no one sees you.
Right. Well, you're the other emojis.
Around the world, and primarily this is being led, and I shouldn't say around all the globe, but in Western countries, and this is a fact. I've done a whole show about this. in Western countries are the only ones that are having a massive birth decline. We're going to have shortfalls. In the next 10 years, we're going to be screwed in Western countries. So we're talking North America and Europe is screwed. Places like Russia they already had, they're not having a dwindling population. They're just not moving the needle one way or the other. Places like Russia that are Eurasian, right? Even in Asia, across Asia, their numbers are.
No, they have a crisis.
But that's only because our bar is looking at them at 1.4 billion.
The global South has a net population increase, but we have zero.
Yes.
We have zero population
specifically
growth
in
or
Muslim
decline
cultures.
North of
Muslim
the equator.
cultures, they're having children 3 to 1 to Western cultures. So if you look at pick any random Muslim culture in any country, generally speaking, you can say they're making babies 3 to 1. And to your earlier point, Scott, what you said about going to church and stuff like that. Well, guess what? Muslims go to mosque. That's
right. It's an obligation.
They go. I mean, if you're a hijab wearing lady, you're going to mosque every Saturday. You're going on Fridays and Saturdays. That's your area. That's what you do.
And there's no online dating for you. You get an arranged marriage through your relatives.
So, somebody's going to introduce you to cousin Bobo's friend so-and-so that their aunties and grandmas knew each other, like they went to school together and he's an approved boy. But across the global South, numbers are rising across the hegemonic Western world in the 20th century, massive declines. And in the browner, the culture, they still do the parties. They still do, the dinner parties and it could be. And by the way, it's not a party unless it's 10 or more people. So it's just not.
Rule? Okay.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're just hanging out. You're just hanging out with your buddies. If it's,
it's
you
really
and 4
interesting.
friends.
Iran has a major party scene that's completely underground. Like pretty much after 4:00 in the afternoon, everybody goes to their apartments. They put on the music really low. They all have like bootleg red wine or like sweet red wine or stronger libations, and partying happens, and things can get pretty wild, albeit quietly, because if someone reports you to the Revolutionary
We're in our
Guards,
own doom loop. We've created our own doom loop, guys, with social media, and that's what I'm going to say. And I know we're all old fogies here. Like we're not the young kids. I get it, but I think it's a bad thing for the world.
I would say
and society.
If I were young again, and old people were telling me, you could be having a wild time, and why I would think maybe I should look into that. You know what I mean?
Right? Like, what does that mean? Like, why is Ted telling me that? I mean, look at this. This is 1960s partying. Like, this is actual like video footage of people going somewhere, and I don't know.
Well, this is a film.
This is a video.
Yeah,
this one's a film.
Yeah.
But this is what I've seen other video on YouTube.
I think this is specifically Hootenanny, if I'm not mistaken.
Is it?
I think so.
But this one is real video footage of a house party.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we got to throw on our ties and our shiny dresses and whatever the hell that was.
As a carrot.
And smoke a lot.
There's a carrot between the knees.
Did you notice in the background they have these ginormous ashtrays? Oh my God! These people smoke like chimneys. I mean, that's not good, folks. Just to say.
There were a lot of downsides during that period, but I mean, look, I think it is, Scott. And we should wrap it up here. But I do think, look, this is like we're not putting the genie back in the bottle unless we go through the day the Earth stood still kind of scenario, and the grid goes down, and then like nobody's like. Online anymore, and then they're forced to socialize.
God,
this is what we're going to deal with. People are going to have to medicate more, self-medicate more. They're going to become more and more isolated. I think we are going to. Scott, you're right about the direction that we're going. And,
I agree 100%. And Ted, we covered this yesterday. We covered that Spravato Johnson & Johnson nasal spray that's now like approved, FDA approved to be a standalone drug. It's a nasal spray to treat depression based on the drug ketamine that
Okay.
you just
So it's like
snort up your
partying,
nose.
but without the fun.
But now you're not depressed. And again, I think with all the advent of the drugs, the social media drugs, I
Yes.
mean, coming from, pharma, not
Yeah. No,
not the fun drugs.
psychotropic drugs. No, you're
Mhm.
absolutely right.
Not the fun drugs that we're all talking about here from like the 90s. We're
Or
talking about
80s.
big pharma, or the 80s, very prolific powder happening in the 80s. But people were less depressed then, and I know you can account for the lack of studies on that, or people, the stigma of
People were
not
definitely
going.
less. They were less depressed then. There's
People
no
were
question about
generally
that.
less. Period. Just flat
I mean,
out.
depression
Period.
was a thing. People did commit
Yes,
suicide, but it was
of
not the
course.
same. Yeah.
Not
Okay.
like this, and there wasn't the need for this kind of Spravato nose spray to get you high on ketamine, and there because I don't think it was a coincidence. Like, our food wasn't owned by Philip Morris, right?
Well, there are
Number
also
one,
there's also
in the
some funny
80s.
like side things. I mean, I was thinking about, you mentioned smoking. Smoking's a stimulant. A lot of people smoked.
Mm-hmm.
People were
Oh yeah.
self-medicating with
Oh, I
stimulants
still
by
love
smoking.
the idea
Oh,
to
no,
this
no.
day.
I'll be honest with you. When I was stuck for an idea, I would go outside, have a cigarette and either a cup of coffee or a Diet
Oh,
Coke. And my
dream.
God, the idea would come in like that. And that was self-medicating.
Yes.
Mhm.
That was, I mean,
And
just dreamy. I
I mean,
get it. When
and
Philip
now
Morris
the
made
biggest
cigarettes and not
the
food.
problem is part of the problem here is we're awash in depressants, right? Chemically.
oh,
Yes.
So
yeah.
I mean, the main drug that's now legal and that is used at a higher percentages than ever before is cannabis. It's stronger than ever, right? It's just so that's
Yeah.
a major depressant. Then there's alcohol is a close second, a depressant, and then there's something that nobody ever talks about. The water supply is completely contaminated with antidepressants that have the
Yes.
function of being depressants, right? Like these inhibitors.
Yeah.
And so, like,
Yes.
what I don't understand why people do this, but people dump their unused meds into the toilet and it ends up in the water supply. And I always think maybe that's part of the reason that there's like no political left anymore, because basically it's like Brave New World, Soma. We're all on basically like, it's okay. What could you do? This is the system.
Well, the reaction to Trump 2.0 has been in
What reaction?
2017, it was resistance. And
Yes.
in 2027, it's resignation. It's like, well, it is what it is.
Oh,
And
There
even
we
in
go.
oh, we
2017, it
lost.
was barely anything resistance. They
Well,
wore their
there's
stupid
one.
fucking hats one and a half times, and that was it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah, people have became big wusses, and no one has the resilience anymore to do anything, and everyone's complacent and can't talk to each other. And like I said, I just thank God I didn't grow up now. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not growing up now. Thank God I grew up in a time pre-social media, pre-phones, where we can live. We did live in
But
that
let me
moment
tell you, Manila, it's a
with those
certain kind
friends.
of hell. I think of that scene in Brave New World where the replicant says like, "Oh, the worlds I've seen, the things I've seen." Like, when you've been to the wild parties now, and the people who are now in
Oh, you
their
mean Blade
70s.
Runner?
Yeah, Blade Runner. Like the boomers, right? Like the people who are now in their 70s. Oh, the parties that they saw, and like for us, we got there. You saw more than I did, and I still got to see something. And Manila, you caught the tail end. But
I
like
did.
for all of us, it's kind of like it's such a bummer to be around now because we know
What a
what's been
bummer.
lost.
So if
Yeah.
you're 35 or younger out there, go have sex, go hang out with a bunch of people,
Seriously,
be stupid, have fun.
put your phones
Unprotected
away.
sex
Put
while
Yeah.
high and drunk.
Oh my God, please just be in your 20s, socialize and learn. Hit on a girl, guys. That's all I got. Go hit on a girl, and girls.
Any girl.
I can't tell you
Any
any
random
girl.
girl.
Well,
Even if
in
you
an
don't
Not
appropriate
at
mean
work
way.
though. You'll be killed.
Well, that's true. But go to a bar. Go hit on a girl. And I got to give that advice to the young girls out there. Don't be a bitch. Like, don't be a bitch.
I was
to
just
them.
thinking about this the other day, my very first day of college. Very first day. I'm sitting at the bar sawdust on the floor. Drinking age is 18, right, at that time. And I see these like 12-year-old girls like drinking up a storm at the bar. So I asked
12?
I asked the barkeep, who's like has a huge fro. She's like 40 years old, and I'm like, aren't they a little, a little young to be
They
drinking?
look
And
young.
she goes, "It's New York fucking City. They're old enough to pay. They're old enough to drink."
Yeah. Yes.
And
On
then
that note,
she comped me a couple of drinks, and then she took me home for the night. So that's what it was like.
Whoa, Dad.
Yeah, that's what it was like.
Well,
So-
that's what's been lost in American culture. And I wonder, I have to put this out there to the viewers. If you're watching in a foreign country outside of the US, please leave us a comment. Let us know, please. Like I think we're all curious to know. Do you guys still host house parties? Is it a normal thing? I know everyone does dinner parties like that. So I'm not asking about dinner
That's not
parties.
the same thing.
Not the same. I'm asking about a house party. Do you guys still have house parties
we do.
and host, at any age where you just gather
It's
your friends
gonna
from
be a
work,
party
from personal
tonight.
life? Right. Do you guys
Party
still do this
tonight,
in
I
your
know.
country? Because the US, as you can
and
see,
musically,
we don't do it.
and musically,
Oh, tell
rock and
God, Ted,
roll.
He's not
Rock and roll.
the podcast that never ends.
True. Sorry. I'm just going to make the argument here that the demise of rock and roll contributed to the demise of party culture.
When Billie Eilish can be a draw, I'm sorry.
That's what I mean.
I'm sorry.
Not-
That's the
You
death
just
of
don't
American
get
music.
it, man.
It's not the same thing as putting.
I've been told that. I made fun of it in my comic strip, and
No
one
one
of the
gets it.
editors at my syndicate said, "Oh, you just don't get it." I go, "No,
I
I
don't
totally
get
get it. I understand boring. I do. I understand
Yeah.
unimaginative,
I'm
and
there
young
with you.
music should be exuberant and fun
And
and
exciting.
interesting. And
Yeah.
this is just
And not
Yeah,
melancholy,
well, I mean, like
fucking melancholy
David
music.
Bowie
David
Bowie could not have a career today. It's just that's all I got to
yes,
say.
Bowie's
right.
one of my favorite musicians.
you imagine
that
Van
says it all.
Van Halen would not. You'd never hear of him.
True.
Because-
Bon Jovi. He would not have a career today if he
Springsteen
launched
would
now.
have no career today.
So yeah, music replicates and is, I don't know who influences who, but Billie Eilish is, is there any other word than melancholy? Like,
and the music, it is in like, I'm sorry, hip hop, it's boring, it's slow.
it's not,
Everyone's
give me
mumbling.
some Wu-Tang Clan.
They're mumbling, it's not.
Yeah,
It's not.
Well,
It's
Bad
not
Bunny
Public
has
Enemy.
3 top 10 hits this week.
Yeah, it's just a different environment and expectation and what they're saying. I don't know. I'm afraid for 2040 even.
Well, I
Not
won't
that
be
far
here,
from now.
But to
Oh.
be
You
clear,
could still be here very easily 2040.
Ooh,
This
I
is
hope
2025.
I know.
I know. I really hope not.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
kinda
want
like,
to
15
bye.
in my 80s? No, thanks.
Yeah, no one
15
needs-
years from now?
no-
Sure.
No one needs that.
No
Yeah.
one needs to see that.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, talk about partying. My grandson's coming over, so
Okay.
he's
Scott,
1 years
will
old.
you
Go part.
Go.
That's a new kind of party.
I'm
Go
gonna-
enjoy.
Let me outro Scott here. Scott Stantis is the cartoonist for the Chicago Tribune, creator for the comic strip Prickly City, contributor to Center Clip, winner of the Sigma Delta Chi Journalism Award, and the co-host of the DMZ America podcast. Scott, as
Party
always,
animal.
Thanks. Bye.
Party
Go
animal.
partay.
Thanks. Love
See ya.
you
Thank you,
guys.
Scott.
Talk to you
Talk to you
later.
later.
Bye.
Bye. All right.
And
So
with
that's
that, we should wrap it up.
that's a great, I think some good points. It was nice to have like a social conversation about society, Ted, and people,
We
if
gotta
you
do it
don't
more.
believe us, this is not just me and Ted pulling random shit out of our ass. This is a real article from The Atlantic, and they quote statistics that really exist.
Mhm.
So please look it up and do something about it. I guess people in mine and Ted's generation, we still hang out. I go to house parties. I'm not lately, I've been ill, but generally speaking, I go to house parties. I go to dinner parties at people's homes, not at the restaurant.
Dinner
It's a
parties are
social life.
nice, and it's a different experience than going to some party that starts at 8 or 9 o'clock at night, where it's
Right.
all about drinking and loud music, and,
Right.
Possibly
Take it from two
and
middle-aged
possibly
age
waking
folks
up
here.
next to someone who you don't recognize from the night before.
That's right. Take it from two old fogies here from two different coasts. It was the same experience. Go out there and learn to talk to each other, guys. If you guys stumble across this and you're a young person in your 20s, Ted's son's age, and this is advice from my son, 15 years from now, go smoke some pot, go do some other things that, we're going to pretend, mom is going to pretend, I'm going to pretend I don't know about. I'm just going to pretend. But go do that, guys, and go be young, go be amazing, go enjoy and go do stupid shit that you're going to regret tomorrow.
Break
but then you'll
laws.
have a great story 20 years later. Trust me, do it. So, all right, guys, thank you so much. Make sure to hit the subscribe button, the like button. And I don't know, maybe today it's Thursday. Go to happy hour, everybody. You old head.
That's a good idea. 5:00. There's still people at the bars now.
Go for it. Adios, amigos. Thank you.
Earlier now. You don't go late.
I know.
Go at 5. All right. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.